Welcome to Raccoon Rambles. Tonight, you and I are going to go out there, we're going to feed the raccoons, and we're going to coach them on mental toughness. Specifically, tonight we're going to coach them on how to overcome the reactive process where emotions carry us away and we act impulsively without clear judgment. This is all going to be about self-control. So if you don't know me, my name's Brendan Fox and I post a lot of nature videos, and I'm also a professional mental toughness coach, and I'm really happy you're here to join. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight. Let's see who's waiting for us. First of all, what is reactivity? What do you think of it? The reactive process in the mind. I tend to think of it like when we get overwhelmed with emotion and we act on impulse without thinking things through clearly. And a lot of times we're acting on false assumption and we're acting on past experiences, and we create consequences without really thinking about it. So what are some examples of reactivity? I think a common one is road rage. You know, if you get upset that somebody cut you off, you start trying to cut them off and you're putting both your lives at risk and you're putting innocent people at risk. Doesn't make much sense, but we're just getting overwhelmed with angry emotion, and that clouds our judgment. Another common example would be when you take out your frustrations on an innocent person. Maybe somebody has a bad day at work and then they snap on their coworker, or they snap on a family member, or they snap on a waiter or waitress, or they snap on the person at the coffee shop. So that's another example of how it might come out. And sometimes it comes out with, reactivity comes out with just jumping to false negative conclusions about people. So somebody might make a small comment, but then you get all fearful and suspicious and judgmental about what they said, and you interpret in all kinds of ways and you get upset with them. But really, they didn't mean any harm, and it was just an innocent comment. Another example of reactivity is you might get mad at somebody because they didn't respond to your text message, and you get mad and you say a whole bunch of things, regrettable, mean things, but really what you didn't know was that they were going through a personal tragedy at the time and they were distracted. It was nothing personal. Sometimes you see examples of reactivity when people are watching sports and they're very passionate about their team, and maybe the ref makes a call that's against their team, and even though they don't know if it was a right or wrong call, they just get furious. Come on, ref, are you blind? They pretty much argue any call against their team, regardless of whether it's right or wrong. Sometimes they're yelling at the TV set. So, do you know anybody like that? So these are some common examples of reactivity. What are some common examples you can think of reactivity? Where people get overwhelmed with emotion and they possibly say and do regrettable things. Hello, little sweetheart. You guys are so cute. Three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We got 10 raccoons here right now. There are 3 key understandings we need to have if we're going to overcome reactivity. The first one is that all problems originate on the inside. Usually it's our preferences, expectations, and judgments, rather than as a result of outside causes. As Michael Singer says, the moment in front of you is not bothering you. You are bothering yourself about the moment in front of you. We imagine all these expectations on how things are supposed to go and how other people are supposed to behave. And then we get disturbed when life doesn't unfold that way. And then we confuse cause and effect. It wasn't the people and events that frustrated us. We frustrated ourselves with our interpretation of the people and events. That's very important for you to know, okay? We project our preferences onto the moment. And then we get resentful, rageful, angry. We also tend to take things personal that aren't personal at all. You know, even if somebody's acting in a disharmonious way, it's all about what's going on inside of them, their internal struggle that's being reflected outward. Oftentimes it has nothing to do with us. It's not you. An example I once read in Ryan Holiday's book. It's like getting upset at a red light. You would think somebody's insane if they get upset at a red light at an intersection. Like, what? Red light for me? Now? Why me? Why did nobody else who went ahead of me had to deal with this red light? I have to deal with this red light? We would think they're pretty insane. But we need to be able to accept the roadblocks and obstacles on the highway of life, because these things happen and it's not personal. This is part of human existence. So that's number one. All problems originate inside of us, even though we think it's the outside causes. We really need to come to terms and grasp that if we want to master this. How we narrate life is the problem, not life itself. Number two is that we're often looking for outside solutions to inside problems. We think we'll feel better on the inside if something on the outside changes. So we expect other people to change. We complain, we blame. Maybe we buy things so that we feel better. Maybe we indulge in substances so that we'll feel better. But you notice how it never really works in a lasting way? Because we're not really getting at the source of our disturbance. And the source of our disturbance is the disturbing narrative that's going on inside of us that's getting bothered about things. We're commonly looking for outside solutions to inside problems, and it just leads to an endless cycle of frustrations. Doesn't it? Yeah. Number three is we need to be humble in our opinions, and we need to stop being so opinion obsessed. Have you ever noticed that the people who have the most opinions are the people that tend to be the most disturbed? Hey, you stop being so disturbed. That raccoon has a right to be here too. So, why do opinions suck? Honestly, we need to detach from our love affair with opinions. Why do opinions suck? Well, we're always operating from limited understanding. We don't really know the full story. We're operating from a narrow slice of reality, so there's a lot of potential for us to be completely dead wrong on it. Also, when it comes to opinions, we've all got our biases, you know? We tend to look for information that just affirms and agrees with what we believe. Confirmation bias, rather than looking to get to the truth of matters. It's very common for us to do that. there's also a lot of ego behind opinion. We tend to think too highly of our own thinking. We tend to think our thoughts are right because we think them, and we get addicted to our thoughts and we follow our thoughts like it's some sort of highly evolved guru, when really our thoughts are like listening to the advice of a scared and confused child. We need to honestly reflect on how our own best thinking has got us into all our messes in life. Opinion-free is the way to be. You can have a problem-free life without any opinions. Why? Because problems itself are just opinions. What we might think is a problem could be seen as an opportunity by somebody else. So just remember, opinions suck. The less opinions, the less problems. And we can be so wrong and think that we're so right. Have you ever done this? Where you were so convinced something was true and you were dead wrong? Have you ever met anybody that is so dead set and stuck on the absolute wrong attitude, belief, or opinion, and they don't change? How fun is it to be around those people? How fun would it be to be that person? Have you ever been dead wrong about something and thought you were right? Maybe you had a first impression of somebody, and then as you got to know them better, you realized your first impression was completely wrong, right? There's also gossip. Have you ever believed gossip or a rumor about somebody, and then later on you found out it was completely falsified, or it was exaggerated? Sometimes people, when they're jealous or narcissistic, they run a smear campaign and they make up stuff and they spread it around about somebody in order to have that person be discredited and socially isolate them. Now there's a 4-step solution to overcome the reactive process and overcome reactivity. Now I'm just going to say that a lot of what I'm going to share is very much inspired by Michael Singer. He wrote the book The Untethered Soul, which is an excellent book. He wrote Living Untethered. I also love that book. He gives weekly talks at his Temple of the Universe in Alachua, Florida. I attended a few of his talks. And I think he's a living saint. And so if anything I say resonates really well, credit him. And if anything I say sounds terrible, bad, or wrong, that's my fault. You cool with that? That's the way we roll here. So 4 steps to overcoming reactivity. Step 1 is to watch the mind like a witness. Just pay attention to the stories you tell yourself and how they can be misleading, exaggerated. Just watch the drama going on inside. Make it a game to just observe what's going on and just watch how those thoughts are constantly narrating things, and the things being narrated may not be right. Watch the drama unfold like an outside observer. We need that self-awareness. We need to detach from it a bit and observe it rather than being too absorbed in it. What do you want? Do you want a peanut? Now, step 2 is to decide you don't want to go along with it anymore. You want out. Because if you go along with the reactive mind, it'll ruin your life. You really have to create a compelling case here. You really have to see how when you do this, it creates a disturbance and pain for you and the people you care about. It also leads us to make poor decisions, because when we get really over emotional, it clouds our judgment. We get confused on what is right and wrong, what is just and what is unjust. If we want to be happy in life, we really need to be a ruler of our mental kingdom. We really need inner peace. If we want to be happy in life, we really need to make good, sound, wise decisions. And we can only do that when we're calm and we've got a clear mind about us. And this stuff gets worse over time, the reactive mind, if we don't do something about it. And it creates all kinds of stressful changes in the body when we get worked up. It can potentially lead to health issues. It can lead to spiritual decay, because when we're reactive, we're more tempted to the path of evil. And we can become a tool for evil if we let the reactive mind take over. Just think about how many evil acts and crimes were committed when somebody was in a reactive, angry mood, when they were full of wrath. They were just a tool for evil in that time. Is that the person we want to be? Do we want to be a villain in life? If not, then we need to stay on script. And the way to do that is to keep our calm, keep our peace, keep our wits about us. Now, a lot of people have baggage about the idea of giving up their anger and their reactivity. So you might be thinking, yeah, but you know what? You need to protect yourself. This is about honor and integrity. You need to protect yourself. Well, I would submit that you actually create more harm when you act reactively. That in order to protect yourself, you need a calm mind to make better decisions to protect yourself and take wiser action. Now, some people might say, they might object to this whole idea and say, well, you know, it feels good to get it out. This is how I cope. Well, that's great. So you're taking the disturbing energy on the inside and you're throwing it into the outside world, the world you have to live in, right? That's almost like peeing in the pool. Everybody has to swim in it. So it creates a lot more trouble because it can destroy your relationships and it can destroy your health and destroy your happiness. Ultimately, there are better ways to cope, and you can learn better ways to cope. Now, some people might argue that, you know, it's going to take too much energy to change this. This is how I am. And, you know, it's become a comfortable habit to just get reactive and angry. Well, let me ask you this. Let's think about outward freedom. People love outward freedom, don't you? Freedom of speech, financial freedom, freedom to travel, freedom in relationships. And if somebody was to come in and try to take those freedoms away from you, it would be shameful not to fight, not to go to battle. If like a foreign country said, we're going to come in and take away all your freedoms, it'd be shameful not to fight that fight, wouldn't it? Now let's talk about inner freedom. Freedom to have peace and joy and contentment. Now, if a force were to come in and try to take that away from you and plunge you into moodiness and despair and disturbance, don't you think it's shameful not to fight against that too? This is all about winning the battle on the inside. If we avoid it, we're just going to have to put out energy to deal with the consequences of it. There's no easy way out here. It's going to take time and energy no matter what. You can have the time and energy of dealing with the consequences of this behavior, or you can put in the time and energy to change this behavior. So we want to think about this as a long-term investment in your peace of mind, a long-term investment in your relationship health, and a long-term investment in your overall life enjoyment. Sometimes people think that they need to keep the reactive process and their anger in order to stay in control. Stay in control and intimidate people and everything. Well, would actually submit you have less control when you give in to your emotions. You can't think with a full brain. It's like you've become temporarily brain damaged with your clouded judgment. I would also submit that, you know, you might have the illusion of control, but really people lose respect for you if you don't have self-control. Think about it. If you have a boss that just loses their mind at the slightest little thing, doesn't it lower your respect for them rather than somebody who can keep their inner peace and give you profound wisdom and guidance in a supportive manner? I think true control is being able to keep your inner peace so that you can think and act wisely. And I'd encourage you to think about that. Step 2 is a big one. We need to decide we're going to put in the time and effort to overcome this pattern once and for all, rather than just protecting it and defending it and justifying it. I mean, it's the source of our suffering. This is why we came here in this life, to grow in our emotional maturity. It's why we're here. Come on. Now the next step is we need to detach from our thoughts. When a thought comes to our head, you know, a reactive thought, we can think, that's a silly thought, we're not going there. Or we can think, thanks, but no thanks. We need to challenge those thoughts rather than impulsively going along with them with blind obedience. We need to use more moral imagination. We need to be able to imagine different choices in our behavior and different possible outcomes. Here's an example. So, someone has a new girlfriend, and this girlfriend is very moody. And they snap at people, and they make all kinds of condescending comments and get angry quickly with everybody. And a friend approaches the guy who's got this new girlfriend, and they say, hey, you know, I'm a little concerned about the dynamic that's going on here, and I really want to get along with your new girlfriend, so I'm wondering for maybe some help in that, how we can get along better with her, because, you know, I'm having some challenges. Please help us be better at getting along with her in whatever way, shape, or form. He might get reactive and think, well, what are you saying about my girlfriend's not good enough? Well, what about you? Like, who are you to tell me that she's not acting appropriately? And then you run off and tell her as if you've been victimized, and the two of you now are angry at this buddy, and you start spreading rumors about them, and the whole friendship breaks apart. That's how it might play out. But if we use moral imagination, we could see that there's a couple other options. Another option would be, okay, we had this conversation, my buddy seems to have some challenges with my new girlfriend and her moodiness and reactivity. Maybe I can speak to him again and get further clarity on the situation. Maybe we don't have to do anything about this right now. Maybe we just let it be. You know, how does he expect me to solve it? What does he want? What does he hope will happen here? And, you know, maybe we have a mature conversation and just continue to get a better understanding, and nobody needs to say anything to the girlfriend. And that's how it might play out. Another option is he could turn to his girlfriend and blame her. Be like, what are you doing? You embarrassed me. You acted horribly in front of all these people, and now they're saying things to me. But if we use our moral imagination, that's probably not going to go over very well. She might get offended. She might attack him. Well, what about you? What about you and your problems? Why are you attacking me? Well, maybe you should just be with these guys then instead of me, kind of thing. It's likely she'll get defensive and moody about this being called out. So that option's probably not a good option. Another option might be he could approach her and just say, hey, you know what? I've decided I want to work on myself. I want to work on having better emotional and self-control. Will you join me in that? Maybe there's an opportunity for both of us to be better here. And we can work on ourselves together. It's both of you against the problem rather than you making it all about her. So that might play out better, and it might be best for everyone involved because you're helping her become a better person, you're becoming a better person, and then you still got this friend who's concerned for you, and you'll be able to better relate to them. So that's an example of moral imagination. Now the next step is that we need to keep practicing pulling the mind back when it wanders off. The reactive mind, it's kind of like a dog on a leash, and it's going to try to yank you and roll in something stinky, and we need to pull it back. We need to practice relaxing and releasing in the face of that disturbing energy. We need to train ourselves to be mentally calm. If somebody offered you $1 million to remain mentally calm no matter what happens, what would you think or do in order to do it? It might be that you just take deep breaths to calm the waves of disturbing emotion. You might decide to count to 10 as you let the disturbing energy fade, because an ignored guest will leave. And that ignored guest is your reactivity. So just count to 10. That could be one. Another thing you could do is talk yourself out of it. Hey, you know what? 500 years from now, this isn't going to make a difference. You might repeat a mantra like, I am peace. You might remind yourself, no more moods. I'm here to help people. How can I help people if I get in a bad mood? You might remind yourself that this reality is overrated anyways. Who cares? It's the insane asylum of the universe. Another thing you could do is seek out the wisdom and guidance of a worthy teacher or mentor. Ask them to help you see things from a higher perspective. Another thing you could do is just practice having no opinion. Have no opinion about the situation in the moment. Practice doing it. No judgments. Just accept that it is what it is. Just decide that you're going to be the master of your mental kingdom, and you pull that reactive mind back in line. Let's take an example of how this might play out. Let's say you're waiting in line at the grocery store and the person in front of you is taking a long time because they're counting out all their change. Now you might think, oh, I'm in a rush, and then you might get all worked up like, why is this person, taking all this time and holding up the rest of us? This is so inconsiderate, and do they think, my time isn't important, and blah, 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 and you could get totally worked up. You might even say something negative to this person. But if we pause for a minute, just take a few deep breaths, let that energy subside. Then we could talk ourselves out of it. We might say, you know what? Maybe this person doesn't get out much, and this is really special for them. And so here they are counting their change and everything else. They're innocent. It's a really special moment. They're getting out and they're going to the grocery store, and you might actually be happy for them. We need to realize that we'll never be free of all this pain and suffering until we get rid of the part of the mind that's creating all this pain and suffering. The part of the mind that is looking for something to be bothered about and be disturbed about. We all have that inner drama queen. Just watch it. Watch its narratives. How it tries to create problems where there is none. Where it tries to constantly negatively judge events and people in our life and get us all worked up that things shouldn't be this way. Just decide you're not going to go along with that inner drama queen, because it can ruin your life and it can ruin your happiness. Just practice releasing and relaxing in the face of that inner drama queen. Michael Singer is an excellent teacher on this subject, and much of the content I've spoken about tonight comes from him. And if you want to know more about this stuff, and if this subject inspires you, I'd encourage you to check out some of his talks and stuff online. Michael A. Singer. He records the audio of the talks he gives at Temple of the Universe weekly, and that's the kind of information and perspectives that can really be liberating. He spent decades volunteering, going to the prison and giving counsel to the prisoners there and teaching them meditation. And I imagine that this is a big part of what his coaching was about. A lot of people probably committed those crimes when they were really giving into the reactive process. And I think he probably gleaned some powerful insights from his volunteer work with the prisoners. You got to watch your reactive process, because there's enough food here for all of you, okay? So this has been another Raccoon Rambles. It's been all about reactivity and raccoons. I hope you've enjoyed our time together, feeding these little guys and coaching them on how to overcome the reactive process. And maybe you got something out of tonight's talk as well. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this subject. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to discuss in future. Other than that, an honor and a pleasure spending tonight with you. Love you forever.